Private cars and caviar, personal guides to secret lounges, legroom for days, and meals that amaze. France is in the air with what just may be the world's most relaxing experience in the sky today. This is Air France La Premiere.
Hello, Jet Setters. I'm Jeb Brooks from greenergrass.com. It is 4 o'clock in the morning here in Athens, Greece, but I'm about to head home. I'm traveling through Paris and then on to Washington Dulles. This is a really exciting day, and it was not hard to wake up because that long flight from Paris to Dulles is in Air France's most premium cabin, La Premiere. This is so exciting. It's a 777-300, the most luxurious way you can travel with Air France, and maybe any other carrier. But you keep watching and let me know what you think. Let's go hop on board this first leg over to Paris.
But before we do that, let's go back in time, because currently, anyone traveling to the United States must get a negative COVID test no more than 3 days before departing. I took care of it at this clinic while I was in Corfu in Greece. It took 20 minutes, cost 20 euros, and I had the results back in about an hour. It couldn't have been easier. As you'd expect, check-in was straightforward. Now, the flight from Athens to Paris is going to be on a standard A320 with European business class, but that didn't mean Air France doesn't start the first-class experience from the very beginning.
Getting a private escort through the airport to the lounge, and then somebody will pick me up at the lounge and bring me back to the gate. This is truly first class.
The lounge is pretty basic, and it's run by the contractor who handles the ground handling here in Athens. There was food, including delicious Greek yogurt and honey. There was also sufficient seating, at least at this early hour. I also love these Air France La Premiere ticket jackets. These things are so nice.
There's an escort from the lounge to the gate, and I'm currently waiting for that person. This is kind of nerve-wracking, I'm not going to lie. I like to be at the gate early, but I consented to be the last to board, so I'm literally waiting now, and it's, as I said, this is a little nerve-wracking.
All that worry was for nothing. Of course, my escort eventually returned, and we headed to the gate. I think next time I will ask to be first on board, though. I'm a bit crazy like that. Anyway, it was straight to the plane since they'd already checked me in. Unfortunately, some passengers were in the wrong seats, and the crew was sorting all that out, and that slowed my progress. But I eventually made it to my seat and was left with a whole row to myself. Have you ever sat in the wrong seat? I know I've made that mistake more times than I'd care to admit, but this was pretty typical for European business class, set up with the middle seat blocked and a meal provided. Today's flight to Paris would take 3 hours at an altitude of 36,000 feet and cover 1,300 miles.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen and captain. I would like to welcome you on board service 320 to Paris Charles de Gaulle. In Paris, the weather is cloudy, temperature 13 degrees Celsius.
Once we were in the sky, I spread out and took full advantage of the 3 tray tables available to me. First for work, and then for food. Quite the spread for a relatively short flight. Be sure to stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to rate the entire experience using the Jebscore. The flight was over in no time, and I headed out of the plane where I was greeted by an Air France employee who would escort me to the lounge. And the lounge would be a great place to spend the 5-hour and 20-minute layover here in Paris. I'm not sure there's anything cooler than being driven around in an Audi across a ramp to a first-class lounge.
Holy cow. This is incredible.
It's an expansive space and beautifully appointed. There's plenty of seating, a restaurant, even nap rooms. Unfortunately, one thing this lounge is severely lacking, it's views. But it makes up for that shortfall with an amazing Air France history museum. The lounge is truly one of the most beautiful I've ever seen, from the bar to the bathroom. It's all finished in the finest materials and designed for utmost comfort.
This is a marathon, not a sprint.
So, even though the menu was full of fillets and fine wine, I asked for water and fruit.
This is the quietest lounge I've ever been in. I think I might head outside and see what it's like on the other side of this wall.
And just a short elevator ride away, some version of a real world exists, at least if high-end shopping's on your mind. But I was drawn down to the concourse, Charles de Gaulle Airport contains incredible and inspiring spaces that serve to emphasize the sense of occasion an international trip really is. I will never take this for granted again.
The instant I become ungrateful or anything like that is the instant I stop. The last 18 months or so have been really hard, and it feels good to be back out. And I never want to forget how fortunate I am to have experiences like this and to get to share them with you.
I decided to take a stroll through a business class lounge just to see the difference. Air France lounges, especially in Paris, are always very nice, and I'd never complain about the quality of a lounge like this one. But you have to admit, the La Première lounge is it's in a different category. And it was time to return. I felt like having something a bit more substantial before hopping on board, so I headed to the restaurant. Although it's possible to order food from the menu to be delivered anywhere in the lounge. Now, I speak more Spanish and Italian than I do French, but I do know the only acceptable response to the question, "Would you like champagne?" is oui. I wanted to be sure to save room for this food on the plane, so I opted for a simple Caesar salad with some chicken on it. It was really good, like better than a Caesar salad should be. But it was soon time for the main event. An escort returned to take me to our airplane. My anticipation was through the roof at this point. After a short ride, I was out of the car and looking up at the massive 777-300 that would take me the 3,861 miles over 8 hours at a maximum altitude of 38,000 feet in the absolute lap of luxury to Washington's Dulles International Airport. Now, of course, I booked seat 1A, and to call it comfortable fails to do it appropriate justice. With only 4 seats in the La Première cabin on Air France 777-300, passengers are guaranteed personal attention from the dedicated flight attendant on board, even if the cabin were full. There was a couple on the other side of the plane from me, and thanks to the amount of space and the way the curtains work here, I felt isolated from them. This isn't so much a seat as like a New York studio apartment on a plane. Now, the seat, naturally, has everything you could want. There's plenty of storage and space to spread out. There's a massive screen that complements but doesn't overwhelm the space.
Incredible.
The ottoman has a drawer underneath. The seats are infinitely adjustable. Flight attendants had laid out a small snack, a bottle of water, and an extra mask before I got on board. I was then offered another glass of champagne as boarding continued.
Cheers. Pilot just came out and said hello. I mean, what is this?
I'll tell you what this is. It's La Première, and there's nothing else in the world quite like it.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to wish you a very warm welcome aboard this Boeing 777 bound to Washington, Dulles. The flight time today is 7 hours and 15 minutes. I wish you a very warm, very good flight, and I leave you in the very good hands of our chief person.
These cameras add a sense of excitement that really nothing else could. This was going to be a great flight. Unfortunately, it turned out the seat adjustment module was loose on my seat, but it still worked. The moving map was beautiful and served its purpose quite well. But it was time to examine the menu. If you'd like to spend more time with it, pause the video here or head over to greenergrass.com/menus, where you'll find menus from most of my trips. I lifted the privacy panel and decided to step out and just drink in this seat again. I really think I prefer this design to the fully enclosed rooms you'll find on other carriers. It's just a really nice way to keep the space open and airy, but also private. The seat has a universal plug, USB power, and a headphone jack in here. You'll also find a remote control here too. You'll need that to operate the screen. The airline provides headphones for passengers to use on the flight. but it was time for me to relax. The tray table is massive, so it's no problem to eat and work on a laptop here at the same time, one of the main benefits of first class. It's also possible for a companion to join you here. Unfortunately, Suzanne wasn't with me on this trip. She's the channel's longtime creative director and, breaking news alert, my wife. That's right, we got married. But if we're on time, I'll meet her at Dulles on this trip, so at least we were getting closer. The amenity kit is the nicest I've received in a long time. The leather box is a keepsake in and of itself, but the amenities inside are useful well beyond your time on board as well. Shortly after takeoff, service began in earnest. Lunch began with caviar, of course, which was followed by tomato and melon gazpacho. Then I had the foie gras. Now, it's important to accompany classy food with classy entertainment, don't you think? For the main course, I chose the fillet of lamb. I was not disappointed. And from there, it was time for cheese. And that could only mean one thing. Dessert was next, a chocolate finger raspberry tart. I decided to walk off the meal through the cabin. The Air France 777-300 has 206 standard economy seats with 32 inches of pitch and 17 inches of width. There are 28 premium economy seats with 38 inches of pitch and 19 inches of width. Business class has 58 flatbed seats with 61 inches of pitch and 21.5 inches of width. And there are 4 La Premiere seats like mine with 79 inches of pitch and 24 inches of width. I traveled in La Premiere once before on one of Air France's now retired A380s. I'll link to that video below. And rumor has it it's also coming to some new A350s. I can't wait to check that out. For now, let's check out the bed on the 777. This bed is tremendous. I mean, it's certainly first class in every measure. It's wide at the top and at the bottom. I'm not going to have them make up the bed. There's no reason to. It's a daytime flight. But it is spectacular. Soon, we were over Newfoundland. Thankfully, the internet access was strong on this flight. You see, I was tracking Suzanne's plane from San Juan. It was looking like we were going to arrive into Dulles within a few minutes of each other. Believe it or not, that wasn't planned. Sometimes destiny just intervenes. There was time for a final La Premiere snack. These various tarts were all tasty, and let's face it, I didn't need much food after that massive lunch, but it was nice to have something just before landing. A glance out the window revealed a pretty good view of Manhattan from 34,000 feet, which seems like a good time to reflect on the flight using the Jebscore. We'll take a look at 5 factors and rate each on a scale of 0 to 5. Let's consider the lounge, the seat, the food, the in-flight entertainment, and the service. In case you're new to the channel, other than Suzanne, there's very little I love more than seeing how airlines provide the premium cabin experience in flight. Unfortunately, for most airlines, it's been decimated as a result of current travel realities. Air France, however, have gone a different way, never sacrificing too much in their offerings. So let's see how they did. First, the lounge. Well, it was one of the finest I've ever seen anywhere in the world. Yeah, the views were not that great, but it knocks it out of the park in every other conceivable way. I've always been a fan of their business class lounges, and this just takes it to another level. 5 stars here. Second, the seat. I mean, it's pretty much perfect. As cool as some of the suites with doors are, I really like the open nature of this space, and when the curtains are up, it's even more intimate and comfortable. It provides more bed space than nearly any single person really needs and is infinitely adjustable. 5 stars here. The food was restaurant quality. I don't have high expectations for food on board a plane. I mean, it's not like there's a full kitchen anywhere, but you'd never know that if you were eating this. And I didn't even talk about how beautifully presented it was. 5 stars here. The in-flight entertainment was great. Plenty of choices, including English language options, which isn't always the case on foreign flag carriers. As you may have noticed, I can't say my taste in movies is all that refined, but they met me where I was. And, of course, the moving map was great and internet access was strong. All that combines for 5 stars here. Finally, the service. It was incredible. This was flawless service. The flight attendant checked on me every 10 or 15 minutes on an 8-hour flight, but it never felt overwhelming. She was just there if I needed her, and seemed excited to have me on board. Everyone who passed by said hello and seemed grateful that I was on board. Every flight attendant, even the pilot coming out. And this, frankly, has been my experience on all of my Air France flights on this trip. They're just some incredible cabin crews here at Air France, and they earn every one of the 5 stars I'll give them for their service. So, for only the 3rd time ever, we have a perfect airline. With 25 out of a possible 25 stars, La Première on Air France's 777-300 earns rarefied status alongside Korean Air and Emirates. Would I do this again? Absolutely. I think right now this is probably the most luxurious way to cross the Atlantic. Sure, there are other first-class options, but none have the personality and, for want of a better word, class of La Première. And it didn't stop with landing. An Air France agent escorted me to a prime seat on the People Mover, through immigration, and onto baggage claim at Dulles. If I'd had an onward flight, I'd have had access to a private lounge hidden beneath the Air France lounge here at Dulles, but I was headed somewhere way better than any lounge. I was able to meet up with Suzanne. We were heading home.
Between now and the next time,
See you in the sky.